Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons was a highly trained assassin hired by the CIA. He fell in love and married a woman named Wanda Blake, but they were unable to have children. Then he was killed, burned alive by a fellow assassin. Finding himself in hell, he makes a deal with a powerful demon named Malbolgia. This deal allows him to return to Earth, but it also robs him of most of his memories. He has painful flashbacks that slowly let him remember who he was, and he realizes 5 years have passed since he died. He finds himself looking like a living corpse, but he has abilities, and he's able to make himself look more human. Unfortunately, he's not able to return to his original appearance, and instead he appears as a white man with blonde hair. After finally remembering his wife's name, he breaks into a CIA building to steal a file on her. When he tracks down Wanda, he finds out she married his best friend Terry, and they have a daughter together. Al leaves and decides to use his hell-given powers for good. The more power he uses, the closer he gets to his second death, and his soul being tortured forever. The Scythe is a one-shot that was released by Caliber Comics in 1996. The comic starts with Scythe stepping out of the shadows to stop a robbery, and he comes face to face with the criminal who starts to laugh at him. He cuts off the man's hand with a sickle to get him to stop laughing. Realizing fear must be earned, the Scythe takes the mutilated man back to his lair. He tests his various gadgets on the man, which consist of a hallucinogenic gas in the same vein as Scarecrow's fear toxin, an electrified sickle, and a hologram. We then cut to a flashback where we learn that the Scythe was once tied to a chair and forced to watch as men did unspeakable things to his wife and kid, including murdering them. The mutilated man then gives Scythe the location and time of a drug deal. The Scythe quickly busts this deal. The Scythe cuts off one of the drug dealer's hands and gives it to the mutilated man as a gift. He then laughs just like the men who murdered his family did. In 1993, Defiant Comics published the Warriors of Plasm series. We start our story on another planet called the Org of Plasm. We then meet Inquisitor Lorca, who is fed up with his government. He has kidnapped 10,000 humans from Earth to try to genetically alter them to create an army. Only 5 New Jerseyans survive the experience. Cookie, who gains the ability to telepathically speak to anything that is alive. Rick, who gains super strength. Mrs. Johnson, who gains the ability to jump very far and invulnerability. Reverend Martin Gilbert, who has control over light. And finally, Elvis Mazaraz, who has the ability of super speed and the ability to turn invisible. These 5 decide to stay on the Org of Plasm and try to make it a less barbaric place. In 1999, issue 23 of Wolf and Bird, Counselors in the Macabre introduced the character of Myrtle the Vampire Hater. All of the students at her school bully Myrtle, but the vampires more so than anyone else. The school librarian then reveals to her that she's the chosen one that is supposed to kill vampires. She soon starts to hunt down the vampires, but a half-vampire that goes to her school, Buford, and his father try to sue her. She continues her life as normal, while waiting for the lawsuit until she comes across a half-dead man. The man turns out to be a vampire who she helps nurse back to health, and she falls in love with him. When it is revealed Mr. Blades, the principal of the school, is the real one behind the vampire hate, Myrtle and her mother then team up with the vampires to sue him instead. In 1991, DC Comics started publishing a new Black Hood series under their Impact Comics imprint. We start our story by meeting a man called Mr. Sid Monson who is trying to rent a car but can't because his credit card is maxed. He takes a car anyways. We learn throughout snippets of a letter to his wife throughout the story that he got fed up with crime a year ago after being mugged, and even went so far as to steal his kids' college funds. He's heading to Seaside City to try to clean up some of the crime there when he is quickly stopped by a kid who starts beating on the hood of his car. He quickly shows he's not to be messed with and forces the 2 kids to take him to the mall, where he shoves both of them in a bathroom stall before taking a staircase down into the underbelly of the city. We learn the man we've been following is the vigilante the Black Hood as he gets into a scuffle with a man who has a gun. The man actually manages to kill the Black Hood. As he passes on, our Black Hood meets all the previous Black Hoods. The man who killed the Black Hood's boss then gives the man the hood, telling him it's him. In 1991, DC Comics started publishing a new Black Hood series under their Impact Comics imprint. Issue 2 starts with a criminal from issue 1 discarding the Black Hood, which he unintentionally throws onto the face of one of the teenagers that snuck in after the Black Hood in issue 1. The teenager who's it in the face, Jake, unintentionally reveals himself to the criminals that are there. He calls for his friend Nate, who then dons the Black Hood mask to hide his identity, and takes the Black Hood's gear to try to give himself a fighting chance. While Nate is retrieving the Black Hood's bell, he is seen and fired upon, and we learn through his inner monologue that the bullets seem easy to dodge. After hiding in the shadows, Nate is able to get the criminals to start shooting at each other. The criminals quickly realize what's happening though and stop firing at each other, But not until Nate has already saved Jake. After escaping through the sewers, Jake tells Nate how cool he was, but Nate replies by saying he doesn't really know what he was doing and that he's just a kid, just like Jake. He even tries to get rid of the mask. Jake hands him the mask back and tells him he's not just a kid anymore, he is now the Black Hood. In 2015, Dark Circle Comics released a new version of the character, the Black Hood. Police officer Gregory Hittinger responds to a report of 4 gunmen, one of whom is the vigilante, the Black Hood. Hittinger is able to take down the Black Hood with a well-placed bullet, but takes a shotgun blast to the face in the process. He later wakes up in the hospital with everyone deeming him a hero, but all he can see, and this is a direct quote, is a freak-faced killer. Upon returning to work, he finds a Black Hood hung on his locker by his partner. After running out of the pain pills prescribed by his doctor, he starts to steal pills from the people they arrest. One night, as he's sitting home high, he hears a robbery going down below his apartment and jumps down to stop it. His speech therapist turned lover convinces him to get help for his addiction. He then spends some time in a rehab center in California. Once he returns from rehab, he can't help but don the hood again. In 2015, Dark Circle Comics released a new Hangman series. Before he was the Hangman, Mike Mineta was a family man who kept his job a secret from his family. He works as a hitman, and we see him murder a man by covering him in strawberry jam and feeding him to the rats at the docks. He's then found and killed by the Hangman, who ascends to heaven. Mike Mineta then wakes up surrounded by everyone he has killed. The devil then reveals himself, showing Mike that he's actually in hell. The devil reveals the Hangman is a heavenly position that must always be filled. They are tasked with wiping out people who can no longer be tolerated, and Mike has just been chosen as the next Hangman. He initially refuses, only taking it on after he realizes his wife and daughter are in danger. After he becomes the new Hangman, he takes out the men who were going after his wife and daughter.
When Timmy was 9 years old, his parents drowned in a boating accident, and having no other family, he was sent to the Ellesmere Orphanage in upstate New York. Timmy was an outcast, being picked on, and on Christmas Eve, a group of the other orphans steal his father's hat, the only thing Timmy has left from him. They throw it outside, where the orphans are forbidden to go alone, lest they escape. Vandercoot, Ellesmere's director, catches Timmy outside and drags him back in and into the basement. Vandercoot had turned the basement into a sweatshop, where Timmy now had to work. Vandercoot expects a new coat by morning, and one other child, Tindra, an Icelandic girl, is his only companion. She is being punished for dumping Vandercoot's brandy and replacing it with toilet water. Timmy asks Tindra if she thinks Santa's real, and she says maybe, but she definitely believes in Yola Kotarin, the Yule Cat. Tindra explains to a clueless Timmy that Yola Kotarin looks for children who aren't wearing their new Christmas clothes and devours them. Tindra then reveals she hasn't been working on a coat for Vandercoot, but tells a worried Timmy she has a plan for them to be free. Hours pass and they finish preparations, running outside in the new coats they'd sewn for themselves. This wakes up Vandercoot, who rushes outside to stop the children. This is when Timmy realizes they have no way to scale the tall walls surrounding the orphanage. Tindra reassures Timmy that that isn't part of her plan, right as Vandercoot catches up to them. That's when all three notice something in the woods behind the wall. Tindra welcomes it with open arms, telling it to look at her and Tommy's coats, before pointing out Vandercoot has nothing new on. The Yule Cat leaps over the wall, chomping down on Vandercoot, leaving only his bottom half behind. The orphanage then closed, and all the children were adopted out. A couple with nowhere to take shelter are wandering through the cold outside. As they pass a scarecrow, the woman shudders, telling the man that it reminds her of Han's trap, an evil rich hermit who kidnaps and eats children while dressed as a scarecrow. The woman shivers again, but for a different reason. This time, she is cold. The man says at least she has a coat now, and the woman says yeah, but she doesn't want to think about that. We then see the scarecrow's gone, as the couple moves on. They notice a house, and the man busts a window, despite the woman's protest. After they make their way inside, they realize the house wasn't deserted like they assumed, when a woman steps out, telling them she would have let them in if they had knocked. She's just relieved they're not murderers, since an old lady was murdered in the area earlier that night. They introduce themselves. The couple are Darren and Karen, and the other woman, Bettina. Bettina brings them drinks, and lets them warm up by her fireplace, eventually turning in for the night, letting them stay. The couple, now alone, discuss the old woman's death, Darren reassuring Karen that what happened was an accident. Darren says there will be trouble though, and that they need to get far away from here. But he realizes Karen has already fallen asleep, and goes outside to smoke a cigarette. Then he sees the scarecrow from earlier standing on the porch near him. The scarecrow walks into the house and Darren chases it, getting a knife to his throat for his trouble. When Karen wakes up, the scarecrow is standing over her, and it removes its burlap sack mask. We see that Bettina is the scarecrow. Karen asks where Darren is, and Bettina tells her he's cooking in the oven. Bettina explains to a distraught Karen that she is the current Hans trap, and the old woman was going to be her next victim until Karen smashed her head in with an ashtray. Bettina tells Karen she's the perfect person to be the next Hans after they eat Darren. It's Epiphany Eve, and most people have already got off work. but one man is still in his office waiting. His maid Petra heads out after cleaning all of his white furniture, telling him a story about her homeland Austria. A Frau Perchta, if notices a mess in your house on Epiphany Eve, will kill you and replace your guts with the garbage that was cluttering your house. The man seems unaffected by this tall tale, however, and he continues to stare out the window. His client arrives, a man with a duffel bag. You see, the man who is working late is a hitman, and the man with the duffel bag is trying to hire him to kill the man sleeping with his wife. There's just one problem. The hitman is already working for his wife's lover. An altercation starts, and the hitman pulls out his gun, but duffel bag manages to knock the gun out of his hand, swinging the duffel bag at the hitman and spilling the money in the process. The two get physical and crash through the glass table. The hitman, unable to reach his gun, grasps for any weapon, his hand closing on a large piece of glass. He shoves it through Duffel Bag Man's throat, but this is enough to kill Duffel Bag Man. Duffel Bag Man stands up and starts stumbling through the apartment, his blood splurting all over everything, staining it red. The hitman manages to get a hold of his gun again and puts a bullet through the back of his head, killing the Duffel Bag Man once and for all. That's when the elevator opens. The maid is back. She had forgotten her keys. But as she sees the mess, she seems to grow angry. She turns into Frau Perchta, telling the hitman that Legend's powers grow with time. She's outraged that he caused a mess, and the police later find his body, his intestines sitting behind him, and the vacant place they once were taken up by the money from the duffel bag.